Gets us down to item E, which is the North Pleasant Valley Desalter project. Mr. Kotzel, do you have the staff report on that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This item is to adopt a resolution authorizing the Director of Public Works to approve the Desalter plans and specifications once they've been revised, and then proceed with public bidding procedures. On February 27th, the Council approved an amendment to Brown & Caldwell's project design agreement to make revisions to the plans and specifications with the goal of rebidding the project with cost-saving measures and rebidding as soon as possible. Brown & Caldwell is working away currently on the revisions, which include two main components. The first being the cost-saving measures that were identified, as the majority of it being in revising the perimeter wall around the project to slatted chain link fence and removing the associated landscaping. Also revising piping where possible on the site within the plant processes to use less costly materials. And then we are going to be removing this certification process for LEED certification. Now the plans will still include all of the LEED improvements that would be required to gain LEED certification, but what we're doing is removing, and there is some extensive timing and cost included in gaining the certification, but the project will include those improvements that are environmentally friendly, energy efficient type improvements in the construction, so that still will occur. The other element of the revisions to the plans are the additional project elements that were previously discussed with Council and identified here as items that were determined to be required by the project as we got closer to the end of design last year, and that is a surge mitigation system, also to incorporate the treated water and sewer pipelines into the treatment facility component of the project. An electrical service is required to the brine disposal metering vault out near Lewis Road, and also the site entrance design per Caltrans requirements is needed to be added to the project. Again, the original design and effort from Brown & Caldwell was based on the original site location off of Antonio across from the hospital. That didn't include this effort, so an example of an additional project element that's now required based on the site that we're working on. So I just wanted to touch on the estimated project costs, a table that we've seen several times, and it's been updated to reflect the estimated cost at this point, but compared to what was shown in December, based on those first bids that were opened on December 4th, and with the total project cost, including all elements of the project, design and environmental, the land purchase, support services, all of the construction, the treatment plant facility, the pipelines. We have to rehabilitate well A and B, so we have costs in there for that. The monitoring wells, which are currently under construction, and then also the project management, engineering services, and construction management and inspection services. Also, all that totaled up for the $70 million that was estimated in December of 2018. And when last presented in February, we had this shown, including the redesign cost efforts. And that has been changed and lowered down to the $140,000 needed for the redesign effort for the cost-saving measures. As was mentioned in previous presentations, the design costs for those additional project elements were already included in this total design cost of $3.5 million. So net increase of redesign effort is $140,000. Expected savings from these redesign efforts, the cost-saving measures, right now is estimated between $1 and $1.5 million. A very rough estimate. So we've plugged in the $1.5 million here as a expected savings from the redesign effort. And then, as was discussed in a previous meeting also, was the need to add in likely cost escalation over time from the previous bid. And last meeting we were looking at the redesign and rebidding taken up towards the end of this year, and we had $1 million of cost escalation with the abbreviated redesign effort, expedited bidding that we anticipate to be done and awarded in June of this year. We've scaled that back to an expected increase of $500,000. And then a $60,000 additional cost increase that had been higher in the previous presentation in February, but 4 additional project management services needed for the extended or the redesign and rebid phase. So total estimated project cost, again, all-encompassing total project at $69,200,000, essentially an $800,000 expected cost differential total given the redesign efforts. And need to highlight and emphasize again that there is no guarantee when we go out to bid again in open bids with a competitive bidding climate as what it is. There's no guarantee that the new bid price will be lower than the previous bid. So next steps are to continue and finalize the revision to plans and specifications, which is expected to be done in April next month, and we'll enter into a bidding period in April and May with receipt of bids and review by staff into early June, scheduled for bringing an award of contract to City Council with hopefully a responsive low bidder at the June 26th meeting, and then moving into construction soon thereafter starting in the July timeframe for nearly up to 2 years, essentially, for majority the construction taking the majority of that time, and the last several months entering into facility startup expected by August of 2021. So that concludes my report and be available for questions.
Any questions at this time?
Just a few.
Mr. Mulchay?
We're not going to get LEED certification, but we're still going to meet all the requirements of LEED certification. Is there an ability for us to achieve LEED certification after the fact, or must that be commenced during construction or whatnot?
My understanding is it needs to be commenced even now as it goes out to bid and under construction. That needs to be done concurrently.
And then I'm going to just keep bringing this up every time we talked about the Desalter project. I know we got a $5 million award from the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, and I know we intend to go out again for another grant.
Yes,
we
do. If that opportunity is made available. To date, we're not aware that they've issued the next round of funding opportunity, they call it. We expect that to happen. There are funds identified that there should be another opportunity, and we're queued up, we're set up. Our feasibility study has already been pre-approved. Basically, we're at the gate waiting to submit again for more funding.
Okay.
Any questions? Mr. Trimley?
Just a couple. So the total amount of grant funds received to date for the project is $20 million, correct?
That's correct. We have one $5 million and another $10 million state grant, and then the additional $5 million received recently from the U.S. Bureau of Rec for a total of $20 million.
Right. $15 million from the state and $5 million from the federal government.
That's correct.
Next question is, was my understanding that during this revision period there was going to be some form of value engineering applied to this work? Can you describe for me what those efforts have entailed?
So as far as Brown and Caldwell's redesign effort and taking a look at that, is largely centered on the piping material changes that we've already identified. And then, and as yes, previously discussed with council on having a independent peer review, cost value analysis being performed. With the shortened time frame to do any of that before bidding an award, we will not be able to achieve that. We are in the process of selecting the contract operator for the facility, and we're finalizing the scope of work and the contract, quite complex item to get out there for receiving proposals for that. We've shortlisted qualified firms for that, and what we're going to include in there is one optional task, and then we'll see what comes back from them with a proposal of scope and fee to perform a value engineering effort from the operator's perspective that could be implemented through the construction period by way of cost reduction change orders.
So that would not be, conversely, that would not be implemented during the bidding period as addenda to the bid specs.
Correct.
So we'd have to wait until construction occurs before that
Right. I mean, it really comes down to the timing at which we have the contract operator under contract
Okay.
to perform that service.
And the staff report does not indicate that the plans and specs are ready. It just indicates we're being asked to approve revised plans and specifications, and they're being transmitted out, but they're not actually ready yet. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's the same.
When do you expect them to be ready?
We're going to be receiving in early April the first final set of revised plans for review.
So in between this council meeting and the next council meeting is when you expect them to come in. I'm just trying to get a better sense
Yes,
of timing.
correct. Correct.
Which is why you're bringing it tonight.
That's correct. And I will add, this is the same process we used on the first go-around, if you will, on the approval of plans and bidding process.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Craven?
Just to refresh my recollection and probably others, we're looking at 4,500 acre-feet a year.
Yes.
That's correct. 4,500 acre-feet of pumped water.
Right.
Treated, expected to deliver 3,800 of potable water.
3,800 of potable water a year, and we're anticipating that it would operate for 20 years?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I do have a blue card. Barbara Williams is here tonight. Let me turn the microphone. It is on, Barbara. Welcome again.
This requires an "oh my God" comment. You're talking about saving $800,000. Well, the discussions that went on previously, including removing a bell tower, removing a classroom, and making a lot of changes to only save $800,000. Oh my gosh. The last set of plans that caused the redesign were incremental changes because of the change in location of the desalter, where you had to put in things to appease neighbors. Well, you don't have to appease neighbors anymore. I would think that there would be a lot of reductions that could be done with regards to the plans. First of all, this does not have to look like the library. My God, this is an industrial site. Remember, labor rates are high here, and the licensed trades are in short supply in this area, so therefore, you're going to have a hard time building this facility. I kindly request, and really seriously think about this, because this is a cost savings effort, the city should consider using prefab buildings from states where the labor rates are lower and there is plentiful trades to build them. This would reduce your costs from a ground-up building of a facility that's going to look like the library. I think that would be, tens of thousands, if not a lot of savings. So you really should look into this as a way to get the costs down on this. And the project needs to be accomplished solely with water district funds and grant money. No city funds should be used or even borrowed to ensure this facility gets built. When you continue to have something near the $70,000, you're going to have to borrow from the city because you're not going to have enough within the water district, and you're not going to probably have enough grant money to do that. And I don't think it's appropriate to build this grandiose building when you have to borrow money from the city. No, that should not be done. Don't create a Taj Mahal. Create an industrial site that's prudent and frugal. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff have any comments on this? I know we went through a pretty thorough review about the design.
Didn't we reduce the size?
No. The final decision was to not make any changes to the building.
I wasn't here. I was at a Fox Canyon meeting when that was done.
Right, so
we're not taking away the classroom or the...
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Comments?
I'll just say that there was a split of opinion on that. I mean, we walked through that quite a bit.
The reasoning behind not going back to do all of that was it was going to end up costing even more money to go back and redesign. So it's not that and we wanted to, essentially. I mean, our first reaction when we saw the amount was that this is too much and we need to scale it back. But the whole process of scaling it back, having to go back to redesign and do all of that, would end up costing about the same. So that was our discussion 2 weeks ago, and that's essentially, I think, why, I guess I shouldn't speak for everybody here. That's why I got to the decision that we shouldn't be going back to spend a whole lot more on the redesign that was going to end up with the cost being essentially the same.
Any other comments? Okay. It's the will of the council.
Looks like we don't have a desalter.
I will make a motion that we approve the resolutions, adopt a resolution approving the revised plans and specifications for the North Pleasant Valley Desalter Project, WT-11-01, and authorize staff to invite the bids.
Second.
There's a motion to second. Any further discussion on this?
I just have a comment.
Comment?
Yeah, well, I verified or first time I'd heard 3,800 of potable water, but I took that in the 20 years. It'd give us 76,000 acre feet. So the construction costs would give us about $1 per acre foot. No, it wouldn't. It'd give us how many? 100? 69 million? I'm not a mathematician. I'm looking at somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to figure out how much the construction costs will add or cost per acre foot.
The total construction cost?
Yeah, 69,200,000 for 76,000 acre feet of water.
I don't have my calculator. Somebody have a calculator that can calculate that?
I believe that ends up being roughly $100 per acre foot.
$100 per
Yeah,
acre
two
foot.
zeros, it should end up at roughly 70 million.
So $100 per acre foot, and water already costs quite a bit per acre foot, more than that. And the price of water is only going to be going up from Metropolitan, so.
And Metropolitan is subsidizing the water that we pump out of this station, or out of this desalter project, to the tune of, off the top of my head, I want to say it's going to vary, but around $200+ per acre foot.
That's correct. That's correct. And I'll reiterate that part of that outcome of the calculation showing, which we had done previously a couple times, is the expected savings that we'll see over those 20 years. Under the $5 million additional grant from U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, the estimate is we'll save nearly $52 million by running this project, instead of, if it doesn't happen and we buy imported water at a, with the estimated escalation in metropolitan water rates, that essentially over 20 years, by doing this project, it would save nearly $52 million, and even more if we get additional grants.
Okay.
So there's a long-term net benefit. It's just we're going to have to eat the capital costs up front. But
And for anybody listening that I wasn't here, I was at a water meeting, Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency meeting. I represent all of the cities, and so I missed several city council meetings, but especially the one where this was discussed. I came in as it was being voted on. So thank you for that explanation.
Please vote. Well, any other comments? Vote, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think it's important that we address the financing issue since that question came up. I'd like the finance director to respond to how this will be paid for.
Proceed, please.
Yes, as we've gone through the preliminary capital improvement program for this year and are evaluating the increased cost, we're looking at this project being financed with the grants that have been mentioned of $20 million. We have water capital fees available to also build the project, along with some unrestricted water fund balances. And with those funds, we're looking at a bond issuance of in the range of $17 million.
70?
17
Oh.
million.
Thank you.
So, and again, that is the structure. As we go through the process to move forward with the bid, we will refine those numbers. But, and in the event that additional grants are obtained, that would affect the bond issuance size. But that's a tentative figure, and the city's starting the process of evaluating the bond structure and the sizing and, the technical aspects of that.
And,
Ms. Craven?
and that would all be repaid with money from city water customers.
That's correct.
People who don't buy city water would not be paying for those bonds.
Just to be clear, we just want to note that there will be no interfund borrowing, amongst city funds for this project. So it's going to be borne by water customers through water fees or grants.
Please vote. Yes, Mr. Trimby, do you have a comment? Okay.
I'm going to be a reluctant yes.
Okay. Please vote, please. That passes unanimously.